He's got his podcast shirt on. He's so ready. He's so ready.
Professional. I bet Richard doesn't get nervous.
Oh, it's Michael. What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And today we are speaking the language of bromance. And Shawn, you were so excited to get on this microphone. I'm not gonna lie, it frightened me. It frightened me just a smidgen. It frightened me a little bit, but in a good way.
Yeah, after like 350 episodes, I'm like, oh,
so ready.
I'm ready. It's like when the wife is like, "Oh, I want you so bad," and you're like, "Oh God, what'd I do? Is she cheating on me? Is her mistress not in town?"
I do that, and then I wake up from my slumber, and I'm like, "Oh," and then I go back to sleep. Well, I cry myself to sleep.
You're like, "Why are you crying?" Dream Tiffany so much hornier. No, Richard. So we had talked about like some of the things we're excited for, and you made a good joke about when we did our tech episode, like right in the end of last year, and you were like, "Oh my God, you got a PS5," and I thought you just didn't understand that I didn't get one, but you were making a sick joke, and I cried. I cried harder than I've ever cried before. But Richard, I have traveled through the desert. I have found the thing that has eluded me for these 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And I am in possession of a PS5. And I want to talk about it.
The crucible you have endured to get there.
Yes. And I said, this might be a 2-part episode. We'll see how much this goes to. But first, what I wanted to do, because this has rekindled my love of playing video games. Like you talk like you're the gamer.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, it feels good in my soul.
You are like into this. It's something that you like are excited about. That makes you're excited, and that makes me excited, and we're just going to feed off of each other, and it's going to be so much excitement.
And I think that's where we're going to like. I want to start like from the very beginning of our gaming history, and then like the next part might be a little bit more like a review and kind of the journey to get a PlayStation 5.
Okay.
Because you played a pivotal role in me getting one, or at least in me trying to get one, but I also just, with us talking and everything, there was a game that I've started playing that's kind of rekindled that too on the PS4 that I've converted over to the PS5. Yeah. So, and one of the things I'm kind of curious what you think about this. So this is going to be, like I said, if you're looking for the PS5 review, that'll be next week. But this week, I probably will be mostly just about how we feel about gaming in general. And one thing I kind of thought about, Richard, there was Ataris. I never had an Atari. I think there was a game station or something like around the Atari time.
There was in Intellivision. Not a lot of people had that. I've said Intellivision to people, and people are like, "What the fuck was that?" I was like, "Well, it was like Atari, but there were colors."
Yeah,
I mean everything was squares, but there were colors. I promise. And the controller honestly looked like the controller. No joke, looked like a cell phone, but it had like an actual like one of those curled phone cords that you'd see on like your house phone. I remember those. And every game had a little insert, a little slip cover insert that you would slip inside the controller. So like in the top of the controller there was a little open slot, and you would slide. It was a little you'd slide this little cellophane piece into the controller, and that would tell you what the controls were for that game.
Well, I know. So I'm pretty sure I played an Atari. I never owned one because there's some good documentaries. I think it's Level Up or something Level on Netflix goes kind of through the history. Console Wars is a great book to kind of go over that, and it's also a great documentary on CBS, which is Paramount Plus now, I think. I
haven't watched the documentary. I read the book. You had me read the book, so I read the book.
I fell into that book. Blake J. Harris is the one that wrote. He's got another book that I'm reading, but the Console Wars goes a little bit in the history of like Nintendo and everything, but it dives more into the Nintendo Sega battle, which is super interesting. So if you are even remotely interested in that or business in general, that's a great book to check out.
I felt like really good. The book was I mean maybe not 100%, but I felt like the book was kind of rooting for Sega a little bit.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Okay.
But like I was thinking about this, with Atari and Intellivision, that stuff came out like in the late 70s, and basically like during the 80s, the home video game like empire, it wasn't even with Atari and stuff, really wasn't an empire, but like nobody was buying into that. It wasn't until Nintendo kind of started breaking the ground that, people were like, oh my gosh, like there's a market for this.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the crash happened in 83, and so you had the crash in 83, and then Nintendo, the NES showed up in the US. The NES showed up around 85.
Yeah, because you think about the progression of that. Like, I think we probably got ours in like 91, 92. So it had been out like in a 7-year period or something like that.
Yeah.
But you think about that, like I'm watching Fresh Prince and you see the Nintendo right there on the TV because it was a very like cultural thing. And so really like I feel like that is kind of like BC, right? Like Nintendo is like, year one of gaming. In terms of console,
I think that gaming was like, especially like gaming in your house was not that mainstream until Nintendo.
And that's a better way to say it's mainstream. Because there was people who were hardcore about like the Godfather of like some games was like in the 60s or something like that playing on a TV.
Oh yeah. Oh god, I can't think of his name. But he basically used an oscilloscope, which is a big giant device that measures electrical waves, but he basically using that, he figured out a rudimentary way to create Pong, or the precursor to Pong. God, I wish I could remember his name. I think it was Ralph something.
That sounds right. It was in that Netflix documentary, because they kind of like move back to that, like everything kind of stemmed from that. But
yeah,
like when it became mainstream, like when like your grandma was like called like, oh, you're gonna play the Nintendo, because it was a thing that was culturally known.
Yeah.
And that was the first console that I ever had. So we're kind of the first generation, I think, of growing up like, between the ages of, 3 to 8. Like, like people talk about like computers in homes, kids streaming. That's like that's a norm now. And for us, it was basically right on the cusp of being a norm that almost every single household had some type of gaming system in their home.
See, yeah, like I'm coming from a very weird place on it, though. Like me personally, because my dad was like this weird early adopter when it came to when I was a kid, I had a computer. We had a computer in the house. We had an Apple, Apple IIe. We had an Apple IIe in the house. I think it cost like some stupid amount of money. I don't remember how much he paid for it.
They weren't cheap. I know I've seen some receipts on some of those, and they're like $2,000, $3,000 in 80s money.
Yeah, something like that. So we had a 2-bedroom apartment, but there was an Apple IIe in that 2-bedroom apartment. So you could tell where his priorities were, was the point.
Well, we didn't end up getting our first computer until like 95, 96.
Yeah, because that was about when that was. I'd say 95 was about when they became not ridiculously affordable, or not but affordable. It's kind of like how flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
Like your first like plasma TVs. You would see them like out in the wild, but it wasn't like they got released and then maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, then like this kind of boom happens and everybody has one.
Yeah, they get to be where they're under $1,000 for a decent size one. Everybody's like, I could stretch for that. But when they first come out, it's like $10,000 for this 32-inch 1080p TV. You're like, oh no. Yeah. But I actually called my mom and dad, because my recollection of when we got our first Nintendo, I can remember, I vaguely have like this recollection of us getting it. And I've talked about it on the show before, I think, just a little bit. And I asked my mom and dad if they remembered. And my dad, he said, I was like, do you remember why we got one or anything? He's like, well, just probably because you were spoiled and you wanted one.
You're a bastard kid. Laura!
But I remember, the way I envision it, I don't remember anything specific, but I remember us going into, it wasn't even like a Walmart or It was a store. I'm trying to remember what it was called.
It was KB Toys. I guarantee.
No,
you.
it wasn't KB Toys. It's if you know where we're from. Do you know where Hy-Vee is right now? The store that was there.
Okay.
Like K something.
But probably okay. So yeah. It was in, but it was in the toy section.
Oh, yeah, toy electronics. I think
because that's how Nintendo kind of like dominated the market early on. Is originally, the Atari was sold in the electronics section with a bunch of other. With the cell phone that was the size of a brick and all this other stuff. Nintendo finally had the smart idea to say, hey, let's sell it in with toys. And so that way kids see it and kids want it.
Mm-hmm.
That also, they say contributed to why most gamers these days, or why gaming is sort of a boys club. Was because back in the day, even today to a lesser extent, but toys, toy aisles are usually you have a boys and a girls aisle.
Yeah.
And so when the Nintendo came out, it was like, well, where should we put it in the toy store? Should we put it in the boys aisle or put it in the girls aisle? And they just kind of arbitrarily was like, let's go with the boys aisle.
I gotcha.
And so it was always, so I guess I'm saying that like the Nintendo was kind of sold as a boys toy and then it just kind of like spiraled out from there.
Yeah. I know in some of the documentaries, it's definitely mostly boys, but you see like them trying to, like some girls talking about how they like to play it and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Too. But like I said, I don't remember asking for it. I don't remember seeing it, but I remember driving to that store like late at night. And I imagined in my head, like my dad like heard some people getting one. And the only other thing I could think of is I remember staying at my uncle's house one night or one like weekend, and he rented a Nintendo.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if I was talking up about how awesome Nintendo was from that time.
Okay.
And so my dad was like, well, I work hard. We should get one.
I think at the time they were probably like $150.
I don't know. I know on the video or the show I watched, it was like $150 or $299. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably. I think the first few systems. I remember the Genesis. I think retailed for like $199.
I think so. That sounds right. But I remember like us going there like late at night because we didn't get out of the car. I just remember when we get back home, like kind of being in like a sleepy haze and like us playing the game.
Uh huh.
But like from Nintendo, it was kind of like a living room toy. Like
yeah.
But when I turned about like 7 or 8, it just arbitrarily became mine. Like I had Ninja Turtles for it. I think I got for my 5th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I had a baseball game, Mario 3.
Yeah.
Bunch of other stuff. I remember borrowing my sister's birthday money to rent video games. And she got mad because I think I took like $10 of her birthday money.
Well, yeah, because games then I think were like 40, like in the $40 range.
Yeah, and it's still crazy. Like, so kind of jumping to like what games and stuff cost now. They haven't really jumped up that much.
No,
like you think a console like Sega was $299 or $199 when it came out, and
I remember, not with this current generation, but the last. I think it was when the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox 360 were released that all of a sudden games started retailing for $59.99.
Yeah, I remember
and people were like,
uproar.
"What the fuck?"
Yeah, we've been paying $50 for 20 years. And it's
$60 for a game.
And I know they've just gone up now that they're going to start retailing at $69.99.
Some of them. It seems like what they do now is they retail it for that, but then they'll throw in like, oh, look at all this exclusive in-game content you can get, though.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of where you're starting to see the DLC stuff. But even then, this is kind of jumping ahead. But like I know, like Witcher, it came out 4 years ago. And you probably could have spent a total of between all the DLCs, what, $120, $130 if you got everything day one.
I think if you day one'd it, I think so. Witcher 3, I think retailed for $60, and then Heart of Stone, I think, was like 15 or 20, and then Blood and Wine, I think, was like 20 or 30.
So just over 100, maybe 120.
Yeah.
But like with like, you know, so you think about that now, like you could usually get a Game of the Year edition from GameStop for, you know, 50 or 60 bucks. Sometimes you can get them for 30.
Yeah.
But like that game I just got for, what I tell you, like 15 bucks.
Yeah, I think I remember telling you, I was like, hey, Witcher 3's on sale. I was like, I would get that. I was like, $15. I was like, that's a fucking deal.
I think it was 10 bucks. I really do think it was only $9.99.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's kind of a different thing between then and now too, because, you know, back then you'd go to GameStop, Walmart, and they'd be like, yeah, this game's 50 bucks, so you'd buy it. But now we've got all this online stuff that you can get a game that's 4 years old. You get the same experience as everybody else did, but you're paying significantly less money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, shit, now there's games that are fucking free to play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'll go into that definitely when we get into PS5 talk. Because I didn't realize once I got my PS5 some of the stuff that I got free.
Yeah, I mean, now you have like people that do, now you have companies that do free to play models, and they'll throw a bunch of microtransactions in to cover the cost. And then you also now have companies that do the early access thing where like, hey, pay $20 and get this game early access. And it doesn't have, you know, it's not the full release of the game, but you know, you throw $20 and we'll give you a copy. I mean, there's a couple of games that I've played that I loved. There's one I'm playing right now that's early access, and it's fantastic.
But yeah, with our original like Nintendo and stuff, you didn't have that because the game you got was the game you got. And I know. So you talked about like, did you have an Atari or an Intellivision, or was like
I had an Intellivision? I did not have an Atari. We had the Intellivision, and then like I said, we also had the Apple IIe, and there were games that I played on there, like Zork. I played Zork on the Apple IIe, which. Oh my God! Is
that the RPG turn-by-turn thing?
No. I'll explain it to you, and then you'll be like, "This sounds like the most boring game ever designed." So Zork was a text-based adventure game.
Oh no, yeah, I've seen it.
So you get a big block of text that would describe where you are, what the room you're in is, and then you would type in what you want to do, and then it would tell you what happened, or
Move
if you
forward.
could do that. Yeah.
Pull out my sword.
Yeah. Shit like that. And that was the entire game. It was entire 100% text-based.
The easiest programmed video game of all time.
Yeah, because it's all just decision trees.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a fucking bunch of if-then statements.
So was the Intellivision, was that something that your dad had like at launch kind of thing, or is it something you just kind of stumbled into?
I have no idea. I just remember, because I was a kid and it was there. I don't know if he got, I never asked. I mean, I don't know if he got it day one but he had it, and we had this cardboard box that was just full of games, and the game was like it was like this little mini cardboard box that was about like 7 or 8 inches by like 6 inches, and you open up, the cartridge would be in there, and the little controller sleeves would be in there.
You imagine how much money was spent on that. Like, you look back now, he's like, I spent $2,000 on all that. It's like, oh wow.
But the thing is like, he bought that. I know, like 100%. Like, he bought that shit that shit wasn't for me. He wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna buy this shit and my son's gonna fucking love it. He was like, I'm buying this shit so that way I got something to fucking do.
Well, I always wonder, like with my dad when he bought that, or maybe mom talked him into it, but my dad is not that guy. Like, he's just not a video game guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if he got that thinking like, maybe I am a video game guy, because he would have been like 24, 25 at this point. And he starts playing it. He's like, yeah, this is totally not for me. I'd much rather work on a car.
Yeah.
Like this, like that's just.
I mean, and to be fair, like, video games weren't really like, unless you were a kid and you in the 70s and went to the arcade.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
It wasn't really that was anything that would have been on your radar. Like, I can get a video game and put it in my house.
Yeah, you would hear people talking about it because it was on the news. Like, this was like a cultural phenomenon when this thing started taking off.
Yeah.
And so everybody's doing it. It's like, well, maybe we should check it out. And like you said, like I don't think my dad went to the arcade much when he was younger because they didn't have the kind of money to do that. So he has a little scratch. He's like, well, maybe I am a video game guy. And here I am. I'm like, no, Dad, I'm a video game guy. Look at me. I'm Leonardo.
But I mean, like then in the 70s and 80s, games weren't geared for, 20-year-olds or even, 19-year-olds.
Yeah,
they
it was
were geared
like
towards
16
like your
under.
16, 17-year-olds.
And they were built
and
around
that's pushing it.
Yeah, and they were built around sucking quarters too. Like they were just money making machines.
And then when the 80s, like when the 80s came around and Nintendo, like those games weren't like nothing on Nintendo was geared towards older like nothing was geared towards adults, let alone older kids.
So okay, so I talked a little bit about my Nintendo. What do you remember about your regular Nintendo?
I really don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember much about my Nintendo. The one thing I do, I remember other people's because I remember going, like I had one and I had games for it and, I played them and it was, it was whatever. But I more remember going to friends' houses and they had them and then you would play games with them. Because all my games, like, I was 5 years older than my the next sibling in line. So there's nobody I played with.
Gotcha.
If I'm at home, I'm playing by myself.
Yeah. And so you played the more like co-op in the early 90s games with friends.
All of my memories when it came that centered around video games in the 80s was me playing with other people.
So I'm going to guess that this is the same answer that I have, and I kind of wish it wasn't. Did you get rid of did your dad get rid of the Nintendo and all that stuff?
I think my mom did.
Gotcha.
My mom threw everything away. Basically, everything that I ever loved in the universe.
We did talk about that because my mom kept all my toys, and just for me to watch my son destroy them. My son is, Richard, you have no idea. I had these toys for 30 plus years, and they're in good shape. Like, they're not on their last leg. He has destroyed so many of my fucking toys.
I feel like it's karma because I remember like my dad had this really nice Warhammer fantasy army that he hand painted and that I just fucking demolished because I want to play with them and I demolished them. And I think it was just karma that like all of my like G.I. Joes, Star Wars action figures, like all that shit just, either got sold off at a garage sale or who the fuck knows.
I know I did sell my Nintendo at a yard sale to like get money for like I don't know if it was for a PlayStation or if it was just for a Super Nintendo or to buy like a stupid watch. But I just recently I watched some guy reviewing like PS5 stuff. And in the background on his shelf, he had his like, you could tell he kept all of his consoles. So he had a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, GameCube, like all those things. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to have that just as like a shelf ornament.
Yeah. I actually rebought a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo.
Nice.
That I personally found at a yard sale. But then I had to move somewhere. I don't remember what happened, but I ended up selling them off again. So I mean, honestly, like the hardware, the actual hardware, and didn't really like. I don't really feel a lot of sentimental attachment to the actual hardware.
No, I would just think of it more as like if you put up some shelving in a room or something like that, it'd be kind of neat. Like if you had like a game room kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, obviously it's just something that's collecting dust, and like when you die, your kids are just going to probably throw it away.
Well, plus like 90% of everything that was on an older console, like theoretically, not actually, you could play on a computer with an emulator. But that would be quasi-legal. Yeah, and so I would never do that.
A lot of those things you can kind of get through the stores and stuff too, fairly cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like even that hardware, like to figure out how to get it hooked up to a TV, you can do it, I think. But
even Nintendo now, like they've put out almost their entire back catalog on the Switch.
Yeah, we've got that. Like I played like Super Mario 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you don't remember much about your Nintendo. So
I don't.
Like I said, I played a bunch in my room. It became mine. And my uncle, he had a regular Nintendo and a Super Nintendo, and he lived with my grandma and grandpa. And so whenever we went over there, we get to go and play Super Nintendo and regular Nintendo. And he was the guy, like, you get to a tough spot because you're in that, like, 4 to 8 year old range.
Yeah.
You'd be like, Uncle Joey, I need your help. And he'd, get past the thing for you. But so
my sisters, once my sisters would play as they got a little older, then they would do that with me. My kids would do that with me when they were little too. Yeah. Be like, Dad, you help me, and then there you go.
They look at you like, you're amazing.
Yeah, I know. Then when they were little, because I mean, shit, my youngest is 13, so like when I did that, they'd look at me like I was a fucking superhero.
But then when you die, they just give you that like disappointed look, like, I can't believe Mom let you sleep with her.
Yeah, and I'm like, me neither.
So the next generation of stuff. So a lot of kids, my cousin, for instance, he was Sega, and I really, really wanted a Sega.
I was also a Sega boy.
Yeah, it was Mortal Kombat, and I think the reason that I didn't get a Sega was probably because of some of the more violent games, because that came out when I was, like I said, like 6, 7, 8 years old. So for one Christmas, I felt like it was probably not even a full year. But I felt like there was like 2 or 3 Christmases where I really, really wanted a new game console and didn't get one. But for one Christmas, Richard, I got a Super Nintendo.
Nice.
And that was, so games I remember playing on that, some baseball, Super Mario 3, lots of wrestling. I played a shit ton of wrestling on that.
The only game I remember, like, I wanted a Super Nintendo, but the only reason I wanted a Super Nintendo was for Zelda. It was the only game I gave a shit about. I was perfectly happy with my Genesis, and I think the reason that I preferred the Genesis over the Super Nintendo was because it seemed like the games on Genesis there were a lot more complicated games on the Genesis. Yes, I felt like I played a lot of RPGs on, like, most of the games that I owned were single player RPGs that I had for the Genesis. Like there was a D&D game. There was a game called Shining Force. There was a Shining Force series. There was Shadowrun. There was a Shadowrun game. Oh, so good. Far, far, far superior to the Super. You go on YouTube and everybody's like, Shadowrun for the Super Nintendo's fucking the shit. Oh my God, I love it so much. And I'm like, the version for the Genesis was far richer, far deeper. You actually gained experience points that you could use to customize your skills. You could customize your weapons. Like, don't know. There's no way.
Did it have saves on it where you could actually save your? Okay, I know that was because I remember NBA Jam was a big thing that I loved on the Sega.
Yeah.
But the Super Nintendo version just did not play well because I think either rented it or maybe I got it for a little bit. So I don't know what it was. So after the Super Nintendo, so like this is where I'm like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've played some baseball games and stuff like that, but I got to kind of the point where, the next big consoles came out, right? I never had an N64.
I actually did have an N64. I got one for Christmas one year. That's the only console I actually remember, like, when I got it. I remember it was a Christmas, and I got it, and I got Ocarina of Time, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and chef's kiss. That game was fantastic.
So in that generation of consoles, so GameCube came out. Was Dreamcast out at that point too?
Yeah.
Like were they? And then the original PlayStation was out, right? Or shortly after?
And the Saturn. It was Dreamcast and the Saturn. And then there was the Neo Geo. Everybody forgets about the Neo Geo.
So the Dreamcast, who made that?
Sega.
So Sega made the Sega Dreamcast and the Saturn?
Yes.
So they had two.
Saturn was kind of like the bridge between the Genesis and the Dreamcast.
Okay.
And then let's see, there was the Saturn, the Dreamcast, the Neo Geo, the Jaguar. That was another one.
I've never heard about that one.
In that period right before PlayStation, you had there were actually a couple third party people that were trying to come out with their own consoles. There was the Jaguar, the Neo Geo.
I mean, because that was kind of a big boom at that point, because you had two successful generations that came through. So this is where everybody's trying to hook their saddle up to this,
yeah, because they saw the fucking money that they were making. They saw the fucking money that Nintendo and Sega were making, and they were like, "Why are we like? Let's get in on this."
So of all those, which ones did you have? So if we're talking Jaguar, Sega,
I had none of them. I had all I had was 64. So I went
until 64.
So I had the original Nintendo, the NES, the Genesis, and then went straight from that to the 64. And then I really, honestly, I didn't have any games for the 64. I think I had Zelda, and I think I had GoldenEye, and that might have been it. Those are the only two I had.
Were you kind of falling out of gaming at that point? Because I mean, that would have been like
I was just really, really wanting the PlayStation.
Gotcha. So I had a different uncle. Like I learned like gaming through all my different uncles, but I had an uncle in St. Louis who had a PlayStation, and I got to play it a little bit. He had the Gran Turismo, and I remember he took out his save card. He's like, "I do not want you to override my game," and I was like, "I totally understand. Let me play." So I remember basically like telling my mom, like, okay, if I save up my birthday money for like 4 birthdays and all my Christmas money, I should be able to afford a PlayStation 1. Never got one.
Oh, that's yes, yeah. So yeah, I didn't get one until way later, but at the time, I did have the 64. But I was gaming a lot. I was playing a lot on my dad's on the family computer, because at that time we had I think at that point I think we were up to the Pentium 1. I think that we had a Pentium 1 computer in the house, and so like I mean there were games like you get on there and then you're like you play a game like Baldur's Gate and you were like, holy fuck, like there's so much to this. Like, this is fucking D&D. Yeah. Or then you play a game like Gabriel Knight, the original Gabriel Knight Sins of the Fathers, and you're like, there's voice actors in this, and I know all these guys. That's fucking Luke Skywalker's doing that voice. That's Tim Curry. Oh my God, it's Worf from Star Trek.
Yeah, I forgot. I guess between my Super Nintendo and my next console, yeah, I did play a little bit on our computer. The problem, like, we had a decent computer, but the problem with computer gaming is, like, you quickly become out of date. So, like the first 2 years of us having a computer, like, I could buy a game and be kind of safe.
Especially once Pentium, once the Pentium got released, then it was really easy to fall behind. Usually, like, a machine would go obsolete within, I'd say, less than 5 years.
Oh yeah, and I'd buy a game, put it on my computer, and it wouldn't work or kind of work.
There was the other thing with PC gaming was, I used to buy Marvel cards, which were kind of like baseball cards, but except they had Marvel superheroes on them. But the store that carried them, and they probably, like, I'm sure all these people in the store, like, are just like, this fucking kid, because like, this is a store that's like selling baseball cards, and they're like seriously selling baseball cards. Like, there's like glass cases with like individual cards like all over the place, and they're all packed in, like, there's, glass cases and baseball memorabilia on the walls. And I walk in there and I'm like, I would like the Marvel superhero cards, please.
Like, don't you want some football cards like a real boy?
Yeah, and I'm like, nope. But anyway, right next to this card store, there was a place that sold computers. Like it was a store that's actually like you would walk in there and they had a bunch of computers set up and you could sit and try them out and, CD-ROM and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why. I think it was just because I was interested in computers, but I went in there and I saw that they were playing games on there and I was like, ooh, I was like, can I play a game? Is that okay? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. And they actually like let me go in there, like kind of just on the regular.
Almost like your own personal arcade.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was not, and they didn't mind because then like people would come in and they'd see like me sitting there playing the game and be like, look, even this kid even this little kid looks kind of stupid, but he's all right. And
that kid doesn't look very bright. No, he's not, but he's been here for hours. So I'm sure your kid will get more out of it. He's been stuck on this level for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. But like games like King's Quest and Space Quest, like all those puzzle games, I'd sit and play those in this fucking store. I spent like a whole summer. That was pretty much what I did. I just went to this computer store and sat and played computer games.
So did you ever get computers seem like to kind of take up a lot of your time. Did you end up getting an original PlayStation?
I did. Like it wasn't until way later, probably 90. Let's say I think the original PlayStation came out in 96
or 97, something like that. Yeah,
I think I didn't get one until like 99.
Okay, so you probably got it about the time the PS2 came out.
Yeah, so like in kid time, that's like fucking forever.
Oh yeah. So around those times, I was playing a lot.
My friends have one.
Yeah. Oh, and like you have to wait till that Christmas, and so you miss a Christmas. Like 12 more months.
God damn it!
But I
want
remember
new parents.
Like, do you like this roof? Do you like the food? I'd rather. I never get what I want.
Play PlayStation in the outside.
But yeah, I remember playing some sports games on there on the computer. So this was kind of my bridge between consoles for me. So I got a Super Nintendo, didn't get a PlayStation, but I played games like Grand Theft Auto 3 on my computer.
Mm.
And what I like I got through the first 2 islands really well, but the third island was really choppy. The original Driver, I don't know if you ever played that game.
I didn't.
It's like one of the first games I actually finished. There's a game called SWAT, which used like real life people.
I vaguely remember SWAT.
It was a tough game for a kid to play. Not just because of the violence and everything, but just difficult. But so I kind of I like playing baseball games. I like some sports games, but like the computer just never really held up. And so I actually kind of fell out of gaming for probably 2-3 years. So I started working and I, met a girl and started dating.
I got a job and met women. Ooh, fucking big man over here.
Yeah, but so what got me back into gaming is kind of proven, and I think if Tiffany listens to this, I'll kind of show how much I care about her because she's not a bitch about it. So the girl I was dating in high school, we went over to her house and her brother was there playing, and he was playing a PS2, and he was playing Max Payne.
Oh, yeah. I forgot the praises you have sung of Max Payne.
Because that's like me, I kind of fall in and out of gaming. It's kind of like just something that I kind of jump into and fall out. Because if I get burned by a game, it almost ruins the whole gaming experience for me. Because as growing up, it wasn't I could get a new game every week or every month. It was something that was every 6 months I might get a new game.
Right.
And so it's kind of carried over as I get older. So if I get a game, spend $60 and it sucks, I almost feel like I need to shame myself, go in the back and whip myself with the religious
you're out there
things.
Flogging yourself.
Yeah. So he's playing Max Payne. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because I'm used to computer graphics, Super Nintendo, and this looks almost realistic. Play Max Payne, fall in love with it. So I'm like, guess what? I'm going to spend some money on a TV for my room. Going to buy me a PS2, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, Madden, NCAA. The funny thing is, so I had this for a week, and my girlfriend came over to the house. I'm playing NCAA basketball.
Yeah.
And she walks in the room. I'm like, hey, I'm still playing. She sits down. And she gets pissed. She's like, I think you love that thing more than me.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was shamed.
Yeah.
Which Richard.
And after she left.
I think she left. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. To this day, so there's another story, and you know the story.
I do.
But every console I get, I have a little bit of am I going to get yelled at for this?
Yeah.
I'm going to get made to feel bad about getting this thing. But yeah, so that's my kind of my PS2 story. So What's your PS2 or did you ever get an Xbox? Okay.
Once I got the PlayStation, I pretty much stayed a Sony fanboy.
That's where I've been.
PlayStation, then 2, then 3, then 4. I honestly do not remember. I really don't remember the I don't have a distinct memory when it comes to buying consoles. The only one I do remember was my PlayStation 4, and the only reason I remember that was because I actually stood in line for it.
Gotcha. Yeah, most of mine.
When places had consoles, and then you would walk into the store, you'd be in a line, and then you would walk into a store, and you'd hand the person money, and then they would give you a big box that had the console in it.
This might be, and it's kind of shifty on that, but this might be the last time you actually have that, if you even have it. Some people do.
I think the PlayStation 4 was the last time you'll have that.
Some people have it with the PS5, but it's definitely not the norm. Because the PS2, so I think I got it. So this is something else I've kind of relearned. Like back when I got my PS2, like GameStop wasn't the kind of shitty hellscape it is today. Like I remember going in, and you got to be like a game member, so you got points, so you could get new games.
Yeah.
So like when you bought a new console and a few games and a controller, you probably got about halfway to another game.
Yeah.
And it was just it was almost like, I was trying to think why I liked it so much. It was almost because it was like a comic book shop. Like everybody loved games and loved talking about games.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely, yeah. Well, the thing was that GameStop, I think originally, which they didn't have any around here, but I remember whenever I was in a larger city, they had them. But do you remember Babbage's?
Mm-mm.
There used to be a series of bookstores called Babbage's, and pretty much most if not all the Babbage's kind of morphed into GameStops. Because I think, I can't remember if GameStop bought them out or vice versa or whatever. But that's why there's so many brick and mortar GameStops, and that just seemed like they kind of cropped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know when I got my PS2, I got it from a GameStop in like 02 or 03.
Okay.
So it just had opened up, but that like kind of rejuvenated my love for gaming a little bit. So much so that like once they announced the PS3, because again, like I was starting getting back into it, but like you buy a console and you really aren't thinking like, what's the next thing? Like we've kind of been trained in this day and age that like, okay, yeah, this thing came out, this new phone came out, but what's the next one? What's the next one?
Yeah.
And so like it got me into the magazine, and for the longest time I was saving up to get a PS3. And so this is kind of, Richard, where I was saying, like, significant others have really kind of shamed me into buying video games. So the PS2 was probably the reason I broke up with my girlfriend in high school. Not really, but, there was a little shade there.
Right.
PS3 almost stopped my first marriage. So, I was saving up this money, ended up getting engaged. And I remember very vividly having a conversation like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like the PS3 is coming out this fall.
Right.
And this person being like, oh, well, you're not getting one. And I'm just kind of like, wait, what? Because in my head, I'm getting one.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like,
yeah.
How am I not getting? Are they out? Did something
do you know
happen?
Do you know something I don't know? She's like, yeah, you're getting married, so your money's mine. I'm like, wait a minute. That's not how it works.
No, wait. Let me see that paper.
We're not even married yet.
I don't see anything here.
So I remember having a conversation about like, well, maybe we need to wait before you get one. And like, it was a very serious, intense conversation.
Like way more serious and intense than you feel it should have been.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, like, what I was doing in college. I was working full time at the sports bar. I had like 2 internships. I had my car paid off. Like I it wasn't like I didn't work for my stuff.
Right.
And so we had a very serious conversation. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure I can't even get one for a few months, so I'm not even worried about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving back home because I visited her in college, because this was a long distance thing too. So it's like, what the fuck else am I supposed to do? So I walk
sit at home and pine.
So I walk into the GameStop and I bought Rock Band because I was like, I'll spend $60 on this Rock Band game. It'll get me through.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there talking like, so like, when do you guys think you'll get some PS3s in? And it's kind of shitty of me that I did this. But like, I had I just had a conversation 2 hours ago with her. And the guy's and I'm like, so when do you think you'll get some PS3s in? Thinking like January, February.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, dude, we got like 3 or 4 of them right now. I'm like, can I return this and get one? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I want to do that. So I take the PS3 over to my buddy's house, Kevin. I don't remember if you came over or not. I didn't even play it at first. They played it.
Yeah.
Because I had like a 2-hour conversation in the hallway about what I just did. So yeah, I was kind of shamed in getting that.
I remember. I think all that we played on that was Oblivion. Was Elder Scrolls Oblivion?
Well, GTA 5. GTA 5. I played a ton on that. So like my PS3, it was Oblivion, GTA. I think Fallout 3 was on that too.
Fallout 3 was on that. Yeah.
So in Madden and MLB and stuff like that. So it definitely still kind of kept me into it. And you said you had a PS3 as well, right? The more I've thought about it, I would say that when it came to buying consoles, I would buy a console if there was a game that made me want to buy it. Yeah, I forgot about Assassin's Creed. That's what really wanted me to get a PS3.
Yeah, like I guess I'm not saying that like it wasn't really so much a like I'm gonna spend $400 to play one game, but like there had to be one game that like made me go, all right, I think I'll go with this. With the PlayStation 3, it was, I want to say it was Metal Gear. I think it was Metal Gear Solid 4, which ended up being not that great. I think I played through it once and I was done and I was over it. But Fallout 3, I think, is what made me dump a whole bunch of time into it. Yeah, Oblivion was one of the things, because it wasn't out yet, but it was coming out soon. But Assassin's Creed, like, I wanted that game, and it was one of the things I got, like, release day, and did not like it. Like, it really kind of soured me on the whole thing. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the PlayStation 3 games that I played my PS3 a pretty significant amount, because GTA I put a ton of time in. Yeah. It's the only console, though, that I've had basically the same one twice. So I had Skyrim. Skyrim, I think it was what really dug me in. Like, once Skyrim hit, I was like, here we fucking go. I dumped so many hours into Skyrim. So the PS3, when it came out, it was like $600, right? $599, like a ridiculous sticker price. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's when I think the PlayStation 3, the initial release of the PlayStation 3 was Sony going, well, how high can we go? Yeah. That's probably why I was able to get one. But it's the only console where I sold it to somebody I knew to get, because the original PS3 didn't have Wi-Fi. You had to hard connect into it. That's right. And so it wasn't until a few, like 2 or 3 years into it, because it wasn't even the PS3 Slim. It was like still the big bulky PS3. Yeah. But it had Wi-Fi, so I went and got the Wi-Fi version of it. Thing looked like a big the George Foreman. Yeah. Yeah. So PS3, ton of time in that, loved it. So PS4 comes out. Fallout 4 was the game that made me want to buy a PlayStation 4. What I only wanted a PS4 more for because we had GTA. So I'm like, well, they've had a brand new Grand Theft Auto on every console, so they're gonna have a new one on PS4. That didn't happen. Yeah, I think the PlayStation 4, I actually think I deliberately held off on. I was like, I'm not gonna get one. I was like, I've got my PlayStation 3. I was like, maybe. I was like, I think at that point I was like, I'm saving up for a computer. I'm saving up for a really good build your own computer. I was like, I'm gonna keep doing that. I was like, forget the PlayStation 4. But then I think I remember getting like a big tax, an overestimation on the taxes. Like I got way more back than I thought I was going to get. And so like I had this extra and honestly, kudos to my wife because we had the extra money and I was not intending to buy it, but she's like, well, why don't you go get a PlayStation 4? I was like, no, I'm not going to get one. And she's like, no, you should get one. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you're sure,
yeah,
it wasn't one of those like me trying to manipulate. Like I legit was not going to buy one.
Yeah, I remember. So when I got my PS4, we were back home in Quincy. So I think I've bought all my PlayStations from GameStop, just because it's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah,
because I didn't really want to. I didn't really want to for my PS4 because that's when GameStop kind of started getting real shitty.
Yeah.
So I went to Best Buy. Best Buy didn't have it, but they're like, oh, well, GameStop has a bunch. And Tiffany and I just got married like 6 months before. And it was like, I kind of want one. But she's like, well, if you want one, get one. And like, I'm having like flashbacks. Like, this feels like a trap. We're going to get like halfway home because it's a 2-hour drive. And she's going to bitch about it the whole time. I want to be divorced before we get back home. But no, she didn't
Every
care.
time I buy a console, my relationship ends.
I told her she should feel good because she's gone through more consoles with me than any other person I've been with.
And she's like, yeah, that's what makes me feel good. We have a child, you know.
Like, yeah, but I mean...
Consoles?
Yeah. We've had more consoles than kids. Whose fault is that?
I did get a Wii. I got a Wii one, like when it was released, I got a Wii that following Christmas.
We just got a Switch. That's the only other kind of non-PlayStation thing I've gotten in probably 20 years. My folks
Wii
got a Wii.
actually was kind of fun. I remember I played, what did I play on that? Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess was on the Switch.
It was a good gimmick. I mean, like you get it's kind of like the Switch. You get, some non-gaming people around and you play Mario Party or you play Mario Kart. It's a good time.
Well, even just like Wii Bowling or Wii Tennis.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Like that shit.
Yeah, my folks end up, like that was the last console they bought was a Wii. It was kind of the same thing. Just, talking about it was kind of cool. And it was before we had any kids. Or my sister and her husband had any kids. So it's like, oh, well, we're over for the barbecue. Let's get that and we'll play it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like I talk about my coming in and out of, the PS4 kind of almost killed me wanting to play games altogether.
See, but at that point, by the time, actually, I think I had the PlayStation 4 and then about like 7 or 8 months later, I finally had the cash and built my computer. And once I built my computer, it was over.
Yeah, like, you're a computer dude now.
I am a PC fanboy. I will sing the praises of PC gaming till the end of time.
Yeah, and I
actually just got done not yelling. I just got done like chit-chatting with somebody about this the other day. Somebody was like, PC gamers are the vegans of the gaming world. And I'm like, oh my God, is that right? I was like, that sounds kind of right. That's
like, how do you know somebody's a PC gamer? They'll tell you.
Yeah. I'm like, that feels right. I feel like that's because I totally see myself. I'm the vegan of the gaming world.
I do. I don't know if it's just because I'm older though, but I do feel like there's less of a, oh, you play that console, you're not a real gamer.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think there's really much of that anymore.
No, I agree.
But the PS4, like, because like you said, like Skyrim, Oblivion, Grand Theft Auto, all those were on the PS3.
Yeah.
So like when the PS4 came out, I was buying it more for the perspective of a new Elder Scrolls, a new Grand Theft Auto, like a bunch of new games, and you didn't really get them.
Yeah, that
right?
never showed up.
Red Dead was a big one on there. And so you had told me years ago about Witcher. And so this kind of gets us, so we're kind of queuing up for our next episode.
Actually, so funny thing when it comes to Witcher, I had not played Witcher. Because I was so deep into Skyrim, Witcher came out. I think I was still playing. I think I was into my second or third playthrough of Skyrim when Witcher came out. Because Skyrim was 2012 and I think Witcher was 2014. And I had done, I think I had done at least 3 playthroughs with with Skyrim. There was one playthrough, I shit you not, Shawn, I maxed out every single skill in Skyrim. I had 100s in every single skill.
Nice.
I was level like 85.
Is that the max level, or?
I have no idea. I don't think it's the max level because you can reset your skills, but I just never reset them. So all my there's a Skyrim save somewhere that all my skills are 100.
And see, if you save that console, you could go back to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because you told me about, like, I think you talked about playing Witcher, and I had got burned by a couple of the games that came out that just weren't very fun. Like, I got Assassin's Creed, the pirate one, barely touched it.
Yeah.
And so I really, like, my PS4, the most I got out of it was sports games, which I'm a big sports guy, so it's not really too much of a surprise. But, you know, the PS5 was getting ready to come out. I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to get a PS5 at some point.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of FOMO, a little bit of, I've got, the cash to do it, I guess.
So also to tease, to throw out a little teaser for next episode, PlayStation 4, I will say this about PlayStation 4, even though I didn't mess with it for very long, PlayStation 4 is the console that finally got me into gaming with other people online.
No,
I have a weird history when it comes to gaming online, but PlayStation 4 was the one that, and there was one particular game that did it, that I was like, I love doing this and I want to do this more.
Is that your tease for next episode, or do you want to drop that? Okay. So then last I'll leave on the PS4. So like I said, I was kind of wishy-washy on thinking about going to a PS5 because, like I said, I just picked up Madden a few years back and like I played baseball. But you told me about the Witcher thing, and I was like, okay, like, am I going to like this? Picked it up, and I absolutely loved it because it's the exact kind of game I like when it comes to open world RPG type stuff.
You're not even done with it. You're like maybe a third of the way through it.
I think my percentage says I'm like 10% done. I'm level 11.
Yeah, I mean, so I'd say you're about a third of the way done with the base game.
Yeah.
That's not including Blood and Wine.
No,
that's not including Heart of Stone. So yeah, I would say with just the base vanilla Witcher 3, you're only about a third of the way done. Yeah. And you're already like, oh my God, this thing's fucking fantastic.
Oh my, and like I've got Cyberpunk on the backlog too.
Yeah.
So once that stuff kind of gets going.
Yeah, once that gets ironed out a smidge.
Yeah, but you introducing me to that world and kind of just I think being a little bit more okay about like trying games out and not liking them, being okay with that, like not punishing myself for that.
Yeah.
Just has me all in. So that is my journey up to the point of going on this adventure that I wanted to share with everybody before we talk about the big adventure. So I guess, is there anything else that you want to kind of touch in on? I know you've got a tease for next episode.
No, I put out my tease.
All right. Well, then, as we'll tidy up this episode, and then next week we'll kind of tell you the full journey of me getting a PS5. Richard, do you have any Richard's closing thoughts?
Gaming's had a long history, but it's not about its own history. It's about its history to you.
Yeah, I like it. It's not about the gaming console history. It's about your gaming history.
Your gaming history.
Ooh, I like that. That might be the title of the episode. All right. Well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website. We're at languageofbros.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbros. Email us at bros@languageofbros.com. And we don't really like push this too hard, but again, we always love to have our patrons throw in a few bucks for us. Helps us out a ton. We always like to thank our two patrons, Wendy and Aaron.
You guys are always our level ups.
All right, Richard. Was there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, that's all the bros have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why
not. Richard, are you sure it's okay that I bought a PS5?
We need a divorce.